Roland Mumford with Mumford.law. 6 weeks ago, I did my first video that's captioned How Police Officers Harassed Me into Becoming a Civil Rights Litigator. I began that video by referring to my interview to become an attorney, which is referred to as a fitness examination or a fitness interview, and that a district attorney had conducted that interview, and that I said I would say no more about it. I should have discussed what I wanted to say now. Somehow, that video was an opportunity for me to be cathartic about something that I've had to hold in for years about how a local Hendersonville Police Department harassed me into becoming a civil rights lawyer. Well, today I saw that a district attorney announced his retirement. I'm not going to say his name, but it's on my personal Facebook page, which is set to private, and that's sufficient for me. But I am going to discuss what I posted. And I should have discussed in that video, but I still had some fear at that time, fearing what consequences may come. But I'm going to discuss it and bring it on if you dare, sir. In that interview, you accused me of things that were absolutely vitriolic. Your disposition was vile. In that interview, you asked me if I telepathically, or whatever the term is, for speaking to people in heaven. You asked me if I had spoke to my mother telepathically, or whatever that term was you used, because it came up that my mother had died in a car wreck, and I made the professional and personal mistake of stating on my bar fitness application, where it asks about my mother and my father, I said that my mother was in heaven in a moment of sadness. I wrote it on there. Perhaps that was a mistake. It was. But the way that you used that against me and asked me is something as disgusting that if I spoke to my mother in heaven, I will never forgive you for that. I have held this in since 2007, and I'm making it public. I won't say your name in this video, but people local to where I practice law in Tennessee will know who I'm referring to. That first video that I did to launch this channel got attention of civil rights lawyers in this country. It was shared nationally among civil rights lawyers. I know that, particularly by one attorney who has practiced before the U.S. Supreme Court twice. It was picked up by civil rights law channels where they posted it in their community pages. And I was wondering how I was getting tens of thousands of views so fast in a matter of hours. And one of those channels emailed me to let me know what they had done because they were so moved by that video. I have a goal of reaching 10,000 subscribers by July 31st. And I've been scratching and clawing to get there. I hope this video gets me to that point, though my motivation for doing this is a cathartic release. In this interview, this man, as I stated, asked me if I spoke to my mother in heaven. Yes, I prayed to my mother. But the way he had asked it, as if I had some mental health issue, was disgusting. And he made a federal case out of that. Then, as I discussed in a short video that I had done, what we refer to as a YouTube short, you know about my video where I talk about two district attorneys that accused me of workers' compensation fraud, and I refer to it as a conversation. It wasn't a conversation like some casual engagement at court. It was my professional bar fitness examination, as I referred to in that first interview, but I said I wouldn't say anymore. I was a probation officer in 2007. I was driving my vehicle from Springfield, Tennessee to Clarksville, Tennessee, had a meeting, was driving back to Springfield, Tennessee. I got slightly lost because I live in Sumner County. I believe it was Highway 41A. and a young kid decided to run a stop sign in front of me, and I plowed into him. He nearly died, was helicoptered to Vanderbilt Hospital. I was in a near fatal wreck. I was taken to the hospital. They thought I had a broken neck. The state of Tennessee was the employer. Sedgwick was the administrator out of Knoxville. And not one time was my workers' compensation claim ever questioned. You have to be a buffoon and a moron to accuse an attorney saying that because I drove my personal vehicle while in the course of performing my duties and was involved in a car wreck and filed for a workers' compensation claim, that was fraudulent. Only you, sir, said that was fraudulent, not my employer, not the Sedgwick Examiner, not even the Tennessee Claims Commission, who approved my benefit settlement. Well, I had my interview. You filed a petition to stop me from becoming a lawyer. You filed that petition before the board with the most frivolous allegations that I had to retain a lawyer. And as he read it, I will never forget his comments. This was so frivolous that he said this was personal. The board did not even want to hear my priest, another lawyer, or my father as witnesses at my examination. The only question they raised with me was when I said, you had no civil law experience, they wanted to know how I knew that. Well, I knew your background, and I was pretty confident you would never practice as a civil attorney, which may have been why you made such an ignorant accusation against me. In that interview, you accused me of being fired from jobs when I explained to you those were temporary job assignments. They were short term. And yes, there were a number of jobs I had been fired from. And I say this because I want to be fully transparent. My personality, I didn't fit in at jobs. I have a Donald Trump-like personality, alpha type, kind of outgoing, talk a lot and so forth. No, I don't fit in a lot of places where I worked. I was never once accused of doing anything unethical. My background checks from FBI checks and all of the other background checks that the board does came back clean, and you knew that. Never once have I ever been arrested, charged with a crime. I cried in that interview before you. And in one fleeting moment, you stopped your vitriolic interrogation of me like I was some criminal. And you went and got me a Kleenex. And then you came back and had the nerve to admonish me for having an emotional reaction. I was literally cried like a child, exclaiming, this was all I had. This was all I had. I had nothing else. I was no longer employed because of the car wreck and the surgeries. I had no other way for income if I didn't get admitted as an attorney. Everything that I had spent, 5 years of going to night law school, all came down to that interview, and you tried to stop me. I don't know what the repercussion will be for this video, but I'm fully prepared for it. I'm a civil rights litigator now, and I have a chip on my shoulder with prosecutors, and that's where it began. I've had a Hendersonville police officer tell me that you would use expletives about me at court, talking about me with other lawyers. I know he was telling the truth because that's the police officer that harassed me in public that I referred to in one of my other videos. He told me that, I believe it was on an evening where I was standing in line to vote, and I believe he was working it. I will never forget that. What you really harmed, sir, not only me, but you harmed my father. You harmed my father from being able to see his son become admitted before the Tennessee Supreme Court because of your petition and the delay and what I had to go through. I didn't get to become admitted in that huge swearing-in ceremony that my father so wanted to attend. but I was fortunately able to be approved. That hearing before that board was 15 minutes. That's how serious they took the petition. I believe it was because, as a county commissioner, only you know this is my opinion, but you didn't know me. And the only thing I can think of was because that when I was a county commissioner, I had called for the resignation of a sheriff who had been indicted by the FBI, and he pled guilty and served prison time. And you and a number of other politicians, as I began my legal career, held some kind of contempt against me. And that's the only thing I can think of what it might be. But maybe it's something else. So that is my opinion, and that is what I argued to the board. I will say that on the record. This is not an attack on all prosecutors. I've had the privilege of working with many prosecutors. I have kept this in me since 2007. I've held it within me because I had to choose putting food on the table for my family over the pride to share this. But you announced your retirement today, and I see all these positive attributes to you in the comments. So I wanted to share this. Thank you for your time.